Hello everyone, welcome back. Since last time Bob and I talked about SSH agent, Bob has contacted me twice, and he would like to ask me one question.
Hello, H. Holds. Yes, recently I need to work with two shells simultaneously. With one shell, I log in my user account on the remote SSH server. And with the other shell, I log in Alice's user account on the remote SSH server for helping her with some easy things. But of course, with my private key, because Alice has added my public key into her user account. However, I have created an SSH agent with command evaluate $ and a pair of parentheses SSH agent in one shell, and handed over my private key to the SSH agent. But when I try to log in the remote SSH server with the loaded private key, it seems I don't have an SSH agent working for me. Do you know what the problem is? Where has the SSH agent gone?
Yes, Bob, it happens as expected. You have created an SSH agent with the correct command. There is an SSH agent process working in your computer. However, unless or before you do something else, the SSH agent just works in the shell where you created it. Let me explain it piece by piece. Since we start from command ssh-agent, so we can take a look at what this command is and how this command is executed with command evaluate $, a pair of parentheses, and ssh-agent. Let's take a look at where the SSH agent program is on the computer by which ssh-agent. This command shows you which program is called when you type in ssh-agent and hit the enter key. Here you can see the location of this program. I would like to wrap up the output of the previous command with command substitution and the whole thing as input for command file. From this output, you can see indeed SSH agent is a program, is an executable file. A program is static, a file or a set of files on disk. For example, the file of SSH agent program. During the execution of the SSH agent program, a process is created by the operating system under the current user. A program serves as a blueprint, a set of instructions that a computer executes by running it as a process. A process is a dynamic instance of that program running in the memory, managed by the operating system. Then what is the relationship between a process and the operating system? In the computer world, a process is just like a company in a city. A company takes on tasks and doing its own business as planned. A company resides within a city, so the city is equivalent to the operating system. So once we execute program SSH agent, actually we created a process in the computer and then execute within the process according to the instructions in the program. Since we execute program SSH agent in a shell, what is a shell? Is shell a program? Is there a shell process created during the execution of shell program? Yes and yes. They are the answers to these two questions. However, shell is very special. A shell process in the operating system works as a special company that provides infrastructures like the basic services that other companies can use, like electricity, water, internet services in the real world. Besides, shell process takes users' inputs and presents something for the users as well. One really important service that the shell provides regarding SSH agent is holding environment variables. An environment variable is a variable that you can define within a shell. In shell, there are two kinds of variables, shell variables and environment variables. Both of them are defined to hold something as value. For example, you define a variable as demo equal 1. Demo right now is just a shell variable. When you set export flag on demo by export demo, you have defined demo as an environment variable. When you execute a program in a shell, you actually create a process according to that program. All the environment variables are copied into the new process, but the shell variables are not. So here the shell process is a company working on infrastructures, provides a bulletin board showing all the environment variables that other new companies could copy in order to get some shared information. The new processes get the replicas of all the environment variables in the shell. That means once you change the original environment variable in the shell, the counterpart as replica in the new process wouldn't be modified, and vice versa. On the other hand, any process can add and export any variables to the bulletin board in order to publish some information. Alright, let's get back to ssh-agent. I would like to run this command ssh-agent and see what happens. When we run ssh-agent, two important things happen. The first one is it creates a new process, ssh-agent, like opening a brand new company in the operating system. Second, it prints some instructions to be executed or evaluated, which are here. Each instruction is delimited by semicolon. Let's take a look at what they are. First, a variable named as ssh auth sock, like this. Second, we set export flag on it. Third, we set up another variable, ssh-agent PID. We also set export flag on it. Finally, we print out the PID information of the ssh-agent. If we execute or evaluate the previous instructions, we will get two environment variables and a printed information showing the process ID of the ssh-agent. That means two new environment variables would be added into the shell's bulletin. The value of these two environment variables would be accessible in the new processes. Typically, we will not generate an ssh-agent with just the single ssh-agent command. Instead, we run the whole thing as evaluate $, a pair of parentheses, ssh-agent. The $, and a pair of parentheses is called command substitution, which captures the outputs from command ssh-agent and places them after command evaluate. Command evaluate executes all the instructions from the command substitution. Of course, if you would like to familiarize yourself with the working way, you can ignore the whole combination like evaluate and the command substitution. You can first run the command ssh-agent as we have done previously and establish these two environment variables manually by running the printed instructions. You can even ignore the printing process ID instruction since you have seen what it is already. You also can merge the shell variable setting up instruction and the export flag setting instruction together, make the instructions more succinct. However, you have a better way now. Why don't you use it? At this moment, first, an ssh-agent for managing private keys has been established in a computer. Second, Two new environment variables have been added in the shell environment or the bulletin. Third, the process ID of ssh-agent has been printed out. Just like in the reality, every person or every company has an ID number. In computer, every process also has a process ID to differentiate themselves from others. So environment variable ssh-agent PID stands for the process ID of the current ssh-agent process. Basically, it is indicating the location of a socket file. A socket file is the way of communication between processes on Linux. The environment variable ssh-auth sock is showing the way how other processes could contact this ssh-agent process. You can imagine this variable is pointing the telephone number of the ssh-agent. When you hand over your private key to this ssh-agent by command ssh-add, since you have already left the telephone number of the ssh-agent on the shell bulletin in the shell by the command evaluate $, and a pair of parentheses, the process ssh-add could reach the ssh-agent via the environment variable ssh-auth sock. That is the reason why you can load your private key in the shell. There is an ssh-agent running in the computer already. So what you need to do is just to make sure the location of the socket file is published wherever it is needed. Because it is defined in one of the shells, you can print it out with command echo $, and the environment variable. Then redefine it at another shell where you would like to use the private key, since the ssh-agent is keeping your private key.
Okay, I understand. It is like we copy the environment variable ssh-auth sock from the bulletin board of the original shell company to the bulletin board of the new shell company. Then any new companies depending on the new shell companies know the telephone number of the ssh agent.
Yes, that's correct.
Great. I would like to log in as Bob first. And then as Alice. Nice. I made it.